Hello, welcome to the Cayuga-Onondaga BOCES Office of Personnel Relations presentation on mandated child abuse reporting, mandated child abuse reporting in an educational setting, and Dignity for All Students Act. My name is Nick Mindler. I will be presenting today along with Ryan Hatch. So as I said, first we'll start with mandated child abuse reporting. Who are the mandated reporters? As you'll see up on your screen, those are teachers, teaching assistants, administrators, nurses, guidance counselors, school social workers, school psychologists, and anyone required to hold a teaching or administrative license or certificate, and any employee required to hold a temporary coaching license or professional coaching certificate. When must you report? When there is reasonable cause to suspect child abuse or maltreatment in a situation where a child, parent, or other person legally responsible for the child is before the mandated reporter, when the mandated reporter is acting in an official capacity. So I'll break down that definition a little bit. What is reasonable cause? Reasonable cause is based on observations, training, and experience you have that you have suspicion a child has been abused or maltreated. What is considered abuse? An abused child is one whose parents or other person legally responsible for his or her care inflicts serious physical injury or commits a sexual offense against the child. And what is maltreatment? This could be physical, mental, emotional condition is put at risk, or there's imminent danger by failure to provide proper clothing, food, shelter, inflicting corporal punishment, drug abuse, abandoning the child, or improper medical care or supervision. What should you do as a mandated reporter if you believe one of those things? If you have reasonable suspicion that there's abuse or maltreatment, there's a mandated reporter hotline. You'll see the phone number on your screen. There's also the public hotline that anyone can call. You don't have to be a mandated reporter as well, as you see up on your screen. So that concludes the first portion of today's presentation. If you have any questions about this presentation or subject matter, you may contact the Cayuga-Onondaga BOCES Office of Personnel Relations at 315-255-7683.
The next section we'll talk about is child abuse in an educational setting. Education Law 1126 requires a teacher, school nurse, school guidance counselor, school psychologist, school social worker, school administrator, principal, or other chief school officer, school board member, or other school personnel required to hold an administrative license or certificate to report oral or written allegations of child abuse by an employee or volunteer in an educational setting. Who's an employee? It's any person receiving any sort of compensation from the school district or any person who is employed by a contractor rendering services to a school district. Any worker placed in a school under a public assistance employment program, as under those laws there. We won't go into specifically what they are. Essentially, if you have any question, report anyway. Who is a volunteer? It's any person who, other than an employee, who provides services to a school district which involves direct student contact. What is an educational setting? Buildings and grounds of a public school district, vehicles from the school district. This could be a bus, this could be cars, this could be vans. It could be on a field trip, it could be on an overnight trip, it could be on a trip to Spain. It can also include any location where there's direct contact between an employee or volunteer and a child. What is child abuse? This is defined by Education Law 1125-1, and it is any of the following acts committed in an educational setting by an employee or volunteer against a child, intentionally or recklessly inflicting physical injury, serious physical injury, or death. It could be intentionally or recklessly engaging in conduct which creates a substantial risk of such physical injury, serious physical injury, or death. Any child sexual abuse, as prohibited by the law, feel free, don't worry about going and looking up those laws, just any sort of sexual abuse that you may suspect, go ahead and report. There probably should be an investigation done about it. And D, the commission or attempted commission against a child of the crime of dissemination of indecent materials to minors pursuant to Article 235 of the Penal Law. This would be something along the lines of pornography, a picture taken in a locker room of a student, or essentially any child, regardless of where it's taken, that is being disseminated throughout the school. Reporting requirements. Report should include the full name of the child that has allegedly been abused, the name of the child's parents, the identity of the person making the allegation and the relationship to the alleged child victim, the name of the employer or volunteer against whom the allegation was made, and a list of the specific allegations that occurred.
And just a little further for that slide there, a reporter who reasonably and in good faith makes a report of allegations of child abuse in an educational setting to a person and in a matter described in this section, the law provides immunity from civil liability to those individuals. So that's one of the reasons they're required to report what you see up on the screen, and their failure to comply could result in a Class A misdemeanor.
So the law allows you to and wants you to report, even if the report eventually turns out to be not what you initially expected to be. So what should you do with the report? The child abuse report should be delivered to the principal of the school where the child was allegedly abused, who will then notify the superintendent. Once a report is made, the parent of the child must be notified along with law enforcement. If the alleged abuser is certified, the school district will make a report to the Commissioner of Education. Again, if you have any questions, please contact our office, the Cayuga-Onondaga BOCES Office of Personnel Relations at 315-255-7683.
Now moving to the DASA part of the presentation. So we're going to talk about complying with DASA and preventing sexual harassment involving students. The Dignity for All Students Act, or DASA, it does prohibit bullying, harassment, discrimination, or cyberbullying against students in school based on any of the following: actual or perceived race, color, weight, national origin, ethnic group, religion, religious practice, disability, sexual orientation, gender, identity, or expression, and sex. And this is specifically under Education Law, Section 12. Now, what's bullying and cyberbullying? Bullying is described as an unwanted, aggressive behavior that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. The behavior is repeated or has the potential to be repeated over time. Keep in mind, bullying can occur before and after school hours, in a school building, on a playground, on a school bus while a student is traveling to or from school, or on the internet. So that's a very broad definition of where bullying can occur. What is cyberbullying? So this occurs when the harassment or bullying happens through any form of electronic communication. This could be Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, any other new electronic form of communication that develops overnight. What is harassment? That is the creation of a hostile environment by conduct or verbal threats, intimidation, or abuse that has or would have the following effect: reasonably and substantially interfering with a student's educational performance, opportunities, or benefits, or would reasonably be expected to cause a student to fear for his or her physical safety. Now, this doesn't have to be sexual harassment. This can just be harassment that interferes with that student's educational performance or opportunity, or puts them in fear of their safety. And discrimination is the act of denying rights, benefits, justice, equitable treatment, or access to facilities available to all others, to an individual or group of people because of the group, class, or category to which that person belongs. So in essence, it would be preventing a student because of their gender to participate in another activity that any other student can participate in. Keep in mind that DASA does protect transgender and gender nonconforming students. It's also protected by New York State human rights law. The student gets to determine their own gender identity, so this should be reflected in the school records, and make sure that you deal with individual issues with bathrooms and locker rooms as they come about. And also keep in mind school activities like graduation, National Honor Society. So transgender and gender nonconforming students do have rights to those activities.
And just to follow up on that, what Nick said, if you are confused about what to do in a circumstance involving a transgendered student or gender nonconforming student, go ahead and feel free to seek some counsel on that with a supervisor, building principal, and to get some clarification before you act. So what is required of a school employee under DASA, and what is required of school district administrators when they receive a complaint? Well, all employees who witness or receive a report of harassment, bullying, or discrimination must give an oral notification to the principal or superintendent or designee, which would be a DASA coordinator, within 1 school day. And within 2 school days, they must submit a written report about the incident. The report must include the date that it occurred, the name of the student who was targeted, the name of the student who was the alleged aggressor, any witnesses that saw what happened, a brief description or as detailed a description as you can recall of what happened, and your name. Now, it can be made anonymous, but as somebody who has investigated things along this lines before, it is always helpful to talk to a witness, the reporter of it, and see if there's some additional information that could be gleaned from that initial report. Principal or superintendent or the designee, DASA coordinator, must lead or supervise an investigation, a thorough investigation of a report of harassment, bullying, or discrimination, and make sure that it is completed promptly and that all the written reports go to where they need to go. The superintendent or designee, DASA, as I've said before, these are DASA coordinators, and they've been designated in each building, or should be designated in each building, as the superintendent's designee for the purposes of DASA reporting.
Now, when we get to the investigation, our office likes to follow the 5 R's for DASA investigations: respond, research, record, report, and revisit. So why don't we just dive right on into those 5 R's. Number 1, respond. What does that mean? So when bullying is either reported to you or witnessed by you, you must respond and intervene immediately, making sure that everyone is safe. As you do this, model respectful behavior. When you intervene and reassure the student who has been bullied or harassed or discriminated that what has happened is not his or her fault. Research. So it is important to document what the allegations are and try to capture information from as many sources as possible, including bystanders, about what happened. Using their exact language, write down what the students say happened. It may also be helpful to try to find out whether anything happened that might have led to the incident, whether any events that happened the day before, the week before, or the month before. That would be useful to know if this has been boiling for some time. Then you want to record. So you want to document. So you can write a thorough report when all is said and done with the investigation. Collect and save everything in a folder. In some cases, like cyberbullying, there may be things like text messages, pictures, or emails that should be copied and saved for attachments to the report. And also keep in mind the social media aspects. So any Facebook posts, Twitter posts, Snapchats, anything that you can get your hands on and that you can save for your report as an attachment, it is recommended that you do so. Once you have gathered all your information, all your documents, you're going to write a formal report that should always be guided by both district policy, code of conduct, and also the Commissioner of Education's regulations. Really, at a minimum, the written report should include what occurred and what remedial action will or should be taken if there was a confirmed case of a DASA violation. Now, an important aspect that sometimes gets overlooked here is revisit. So after, let's say you do the investigation and there was a confirmed case, there was a violation. So you're going to create a plan of how to stop the actions from occurring and recurring in the future. So after the plan has been developed for both the student who was bullied and the student that engaged in the bullying behavior, it's important to follow up with each student, not just the one that was bullied, to check and see how things are going. You want to find out if anything has changed, if the plans put into place are working, or if they're not working, and if anything else needs to be done. Follow-up gives you a chance to gather more information and lets all students involved know that there is continued adult support for them.
So what is the school district's obligations once they have a verified incident of harassment, bullying, or discrimination, or DASA? Well, school district must take actions to end the harassment, bullying, and or discrimination, eliminate the hostile environment that the victim is experiencing, create a more positive school culture and climate, prevent a recurrence of the behavior, which that's why the revisit part is so important. That's how you prevent a reoccurrence. You revisit. Ensure the safety of the students against whom such behavior was directed. In responding, a progressive model of discipline must be utilized that is measured and balanced and age appropriate. This, of course, is for the alleged harasser. How do we deal with them after the fact? You need to make appropriate use of prevention, education, and intervention, as well as disciplinary methods to to deal with the student who engaged in this sort of behavior. You need to consider the severity of the conduct as well as the age of the aggressor, and what sort of things are really going to work to help this student learn what they did was wrong and make sure it doesn't happen again. So finally, and again, if you have any questions about this subject or any of the subjects we've presented here in this presentation, please feel free to give our office a call at 315-255-7683.